Cool. Well, thank you very much, everyone. Good to be here, and thank you very much, Victor, for having me on to present this. So we're going to run through today how to achieve organic and sustainable growth through Shopify SEO. I think SEO is a really good way of growing your business over the long term, and I would say that because I'm an e-commerce consultant, and this is my job to say that. So what we're going to run through today are several key facts. But first, a bit about me. I work with, as Victor's very kindly said, ambitious and purpose-driven Shopify stores, and the focus here is really on practical guidance. SEO is a journey. That sounds maybe a bit artistic to say, but I think it really is that different advice is more appropriate for different people at different times. No single website is going to have the same SEO issues. Every business is going to have its own challenges, and it's making sure that the advice you get from an SEO perspective is practical and appropriate for you. My background is in e-commerce. I've done a bit of everything. I've built Shopify stores. I have done WooCommerce and Magento stuff as well. I've managed Google Ads. I've done affiliates. I've done email. I've done social, and a bit of everything. But I really settled on SEO as the best channel for growing small businesses because it delivers the best return on investment over time. As I mentioned, SEO isn't always right for every website or store, and it's knowing when to use it appropriately. But when it is done right and it is suitable, it can drive incredible return on investment. So we see here that I was working with a brand for around 18 months, and this is with a fairly modest investment. They went from £10,000 a month revenue up to £200,000 a month over that 18-month period, just because they were in the right place at the right time. They invested in SEO and in content, and they did all the right things, and they are a Shopify store. And they saw huge growth as a result of that. What I'm going to do today is just talk through a little bit about how that was done and discuss the strategies behind it. So this is the very rough plan. To start off with, I'm going to talk around what SEO actually is, give you some ideas on the very basics of SEO, and then we'll dive into the keywords side of things and explore how keywords match to the customer journey, discuss search intent, which is a term that's used quite a lot at the minute. I'll then cover how to find opportunity within that realm, and also how to use those keywords in that customer journey to create pages that rank in Google on your Shopify store. Then at the end, we'll have questions and answers. Please do fire through questions into the questions tab as we go, because I won't remember them otherwise. So let's get stuck in. Firstly, what is SEO? I think this is an important question to answer because quite often it can be a little bit assumed that the knowledge is there. And I think the main misconception here is that people think SEO is all about Google, and it is called search engine optimization, but really it's about making your website easy for your customers and Google to understand. We've seen a lot of changes that Google's made to the search algorithms in the past 3-4 years that have all been focused around customer experience. And therefore, if you put your customers at the center of what you're doing in terms of your website, you're not going to go too far wrong with Google either. If it's bad for your users, it's bad for SEO. So things like pop-ups, having really massive images on your homepage or on your site that make this site slow to load, things like having pages that don't actually have the right text on them, or it's you're trying to hide text. All of these things that are a bad user experience are also bad for SEO, and we've seen that alignment over the past few months, and certainly we're seeing it now with Core Web Vitals, which I don't want to go too much into today, but is a new update from Google coming in. I think it's next month now. That's all focused around speed and optimization and making your website really fast and nice to use. And again, we're seeing that user experience being put front and center. A key thing with SEO is to build solid foundations, and it does take time. There's no getting away from that, but that's why it's so important to do as early as you can. The sooner you start building these foundations out, the more successful you're going to be over the long term. And certainly the most successful companies that I've worked with, or the most enjoyable companies I've worked with, are ones that have invested in SEO maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and then they've stopped for a while, and then you come back to it, and those foundations are still solid, and you can still use those to build on. There's 3 key things that make those foundations, which we're going to talk a little bit more about. That is technical SEO, content, so what's on your website, and then links. All 3 of these are needed for a solid SEO foundation. If you focus too much on one of them, you will miss opportunity on the others, and that will lead to an imbalanced business and an imbalanced website, and it's going to mean that you don't really see the growth you actually want to see. Let's run through these in more detail and just explore what each section is and what I mean by technical content and links. So the technical side, I think the main benefit with Shopify as a platform is that it handles a lot of the technical issues for you to a certain extent, because it gets kind of a bit of a bad rep within the SEO industry because it is quite tied down. You can't customize a lot of the more technical specific SEO sections that you might want to try and control. However, that is also a benefit for most small business owners. I'd say for 95, if not more % of Shopify stores, having that technical side slightly locked away and managed for you is a real benefit, because it means that you've got far more time to spend on other areas. Technical SEO tends to affect larger sites more, so it tends to become more of an issue when you've got tens of thousands of products or you've got a lot of pages. And to be honest with you, if you're on Shopify, just focusing on the basics is really all you need to do. Make sure your images have got alt text that's descriptive. Make sure your meta descriptions and titles, so that's the box at the bottom of the product page or at the collection page, that they are informative and they actually say what is on the page and what you can expect. And make sure you've got a good user experience. So as I said earlier, make sure your pages load fairly quickly and you've not got any massive images and stuff like that. I would worry about technical Shopify issues once you're hitting a large number of users a month. There's no real ballpark for this, but I'd say around 30,000 people a month from organic search. Anything less than that, and you've probably got other issues within your business that need addressing first, rather than focusing on the technical side or investing in it. Content. So content, very bluntly, is what is on your website. That includes the pages, so collections, pages, blogs, everything, product pages. It also includes videos, images, and text. So it really is what we mean by content is everything that's on your website. If you don't have any content, it means you don't have any pages. And if you don't have any pages, it means you can't rank. Google needs something on your website to be able to rank it. And content is basically what people are searching for. Typically, when someone is searching for something, they are looking for a solution. And if you don't have a page on your website that answers that problem or that solution, then you're not going to rank for it. Finally, links. Now, links are the most difficult part of SEO, and there is no easy way around that. They are essentially the roads to your website. And the more roads you have, the easier it is to get to your website from other places. And that's how it demonstrates authority and shows Google that you are a trusted destination for other customers to try and find you. The links that you're building need to be relevant. They need to be genuine. And that makes them quite hard and slow to build, but that's exactly why they work. Investing in links as soon as you can is really beneficial, because it means that you'll be in a much better place if you come to invest in other things in the long term. I think the main thing to emphasize around link building is that it should be hard to do. If it's too easy, it tends to come across as quite spammy, and Google will detect that and it won't necessarily penalize you, but it's not going to have any positive effect to you. Getting good links is hard work. And it is, to get that genuine authority and trust from Google is going to take a lot of work to do it. A good way to think about these links is, could it bring me a genuine customer? Am I getting a link in a place, in a blog post or in an article where my customers actively are? If the answer to that is yes, then that's normally a good litmus test to say, let's proceed and let's acquire that link in whatever form that might be. If not, and if you're just generating links on websites where your customers aren't, then there's generally no point in actually doing it. A little tip here very quickly on ways to think about links as a business owner or as a kind of marketing manager. Events are a really good way of generating it. Your suppliers, so do your suppliers have a space on your site where they can link to you? Any industry directories, so any very specific niche specialist directories or magazines and things like that you can try and get involved with. And also any partners that you're working with, whether that's affiliates or whether that's bloggers or influencers. If they've got web properties that they can kind of link to you on, that's a really powerful place as well. I don't want to spend too much time on links because it is a very difficult topic in its own right, and I could go down digital PR and all that, but there's a lot out there around links. Anyway, keywords. What I wanted to right now is just explore keywords on the one hand, and then also explore search intent as well. As I mentioned earlier, search intent is something that's really been discussed a lot in the past year or two around search, maybe a bit longer, because it's a really important thing to kind of get your head around as a very important element of moving beyond just keywords. So what's the difference between keywords and search intent? I think the main thing is that keywords tell us what someone has searched, whereas search intent tells us why they've searched it. And that why is far more important, because if you focus on the keywords, you can lose the bigger picture. And ultimately, you can't predict every keyword that someone's going to search. There's a crazy stat, like something 30% of all Google searches that are done every day are unique. People are always finding different ways of searching and creating different words. And you can imagine it yourself that if you think of a sentence and then you try and shuffle that around into different formats, there's normally 5, 6, 7 different ways of searching for what you're trying to achieve. So I think we really need to move beyond keywords and what people are searching for and think why they're searching for it and just be more empathetic to them. As an example of what I mean by this, here are the keywords that a certain page on a UK retailer Next actually ranked for. So they've got 2 pages, red cushions and blue cushions. And I hope you get settled in with the word cushions because we're going to be using it a lot in this presentation. So we've got red cushions. That's what the page is called. They have a collection called red cushions, and it ranks top 3 for all of these keywords here. So red patterned, dark red, red cushions, red check, red and cream, red and white, plain red, deep red, red cushions UK, and red cushions. Those are all different terms that one page ranks for in the top 3 search results. Similarly, on the blue cushions page, there are over 82 keywords that it ranks top 3 for. And it's going to be impossible for you to sit down and predict all the different ways that people are searching for that. That's what Google's for, essentially. The key thing here is that the search intent, that what someone is trying to achieve behind these searches is the same. Someone searching for red and cream cushions and someone searching for dark red cushions, they are both trying to do the same thing in that they are trying to purchase or browse for red cushions. We're going to go through these in a bit more detail next. The key thing to remember is that search intent, one page is one search intent. Basically, you need to think about what that user is trying to achieve and think of it on a page level rather than on a keyword level. So keywords are the gateway into what people are trying to achieve. People may describe their problems in one keyword, they may do it in 50, and it's going to be impossible for you to predict all of those. So if you can focus on creating pages that answer problems and answer questions, that's going to be more beneficial from an SEO point of view, because Google's going to be more accurately able to match what your website to what they're searching for. Equally, though, you need to have the right content based on their customer journey. And I think the customer journey is something that is quite often overlooked. So we're going to run through that now and just look at how SEO might align with that customer journey. So just to give you a very rough kind of lesson in the customer journey, this is very rudimentary, but there are 4 stages, the 4 key stages for any e-commerce business. There's awareness, consideration, evaluation, and then finally purchase. People move through these different stages as they're on their journey to purchase, starting at awareness typically. So at awareness, the searcher has got a problem, but they don't yet know how to define it, and they're still working out the words they need to use to describe their problem. They're educating themselves and trying to understand more about the problem that they've got. An example search for this would be, what colour cushions go with a red sofa? They don't know yet what cushions they're trying to purchase. They don't know yet what the solution is, but they know their problem is that they've got a red sofa and they're trying to buy cushions for it. They then move on to the consideration phase. This is where the searcher or the customer has identified the problem and they've given it a name, and they're now trying to search for a specific solution. So in this case, they've searched for what colour cushions go with the red sofa. They found the answer in the search results. They've defined it as red cushions, and now they're going to try and search for red cushions to find the product that is going to fix that problem. They then move to the evaluation phase, where they've now narrowed that down to a few options. So they've got maybe 3 or 4 different red cushions they're looking to purchase, and they're evaluating which is the best for them. So here they might go either for a brand term, or they might define it slightly more narrowly by using the word best or top. So best red scatter cushion brands, where they're looking for the top brands to purchase from, but they know what they want to buy. They want to buy a red scatter cushion. Finally, at purchase, they know exactly what they want to purchase, and they're now looking for the best price or item. So this is where you start getting brand names enter in, where someone is searching for an exact item from an exact place because they've identified what they need to buy, and now they've identified where to buy it from, and now they're just searching for that. Typically, a lot of my clients, they tend to try and focus on the evaluation and purchase phase, which is not the wrong thing to do, but it overlooks a lot of opportunity, which tends to be in the awareness and consideration phases. This is where you should be focusing most of your effort to reach the most amount of people. Let's run through an example of this and just look at what the search results look like accordingly. So an example of an awareness type phrase, such as what cushions for sofa, we see the search results are quite varied. We've got a blog post at the top. We've then got that next category, We've then got some more blogs that Google's suggesting for us. So it's suggesting different research topics. And then we've got another Amazon collection. So Google doesn't really know what we want here. We don't really know what we want. And therefore, Google is giving us a few options depending on where exactly we are in this journey and what we're looking for. The problem isn't defined enough yet for Google to give more accurate results. Just a quick example that shows how much this search results page can actually change is another awareness type term, such as what colour cushions go with red sofa, which is again a slightly more specific search term. We see the search results change quite a lot, where we've got Google Shopping at the top, which is paid, and then we've got a lot of images where it's a very image-heavy results page. So Google's clearly like, well, you probably want to look through this and browse and see what you think of these different ones. Then we've got questions, so this people also ask section. And then below that, we've then got the search results page. As the actual kind of organic search results, sorry. And within that, again, we've got Pinterest, we've got blog posts, we've got articles. There aren't really any e-commerce collections here. On this entire page, there are no kind of collections, there's no product categories, there's no e-commerce intent here. We don't want to buy anything. Google knows that, and therefore it's not showing it. If we move down to the consideration phase, we've then got red cushions as a search term. Very obvious. This is then just categories. The entire page is just categories where Google knows we're trying to buy something, we're trying to browse for something, and therefore it's going to reflect that accordingly. On the evaluation side, we've got, if we search for something like large red velvet cushion, which is slightly more specific, where we've identified what we want to buy, and we're trying to narrow down what we're looking for, we then get a much more refined search results page where it's around products. So we've got 2 product results and also 2 category results as well, where we've got Wayfair and Dunelm that have got collections specifically around red velvet cushions. But then Google's also finding those specific products on Matalan and Home Frontiers to list accordingly. If we then move to the purchase phase, we've got red velvet cushion Amazon. So we've introduced a brand term here because you know exactly where we want to buy it from. And obviously Google has reflected that accordingly, where we only get Amazon results. Amazon's not a great example here because it is so massive and they've got so many products, but just as an example, at the purchase phase, you typically start getting those branded searches coming in, and the results will reflect that accordingly. So what does this have to do with SEO? Because it might seem like I'm going down a bit of a kind of more broader marketing path here. The key thing to remember is that you need content for every stage of someone's journey. There's no good just having a website that only focuses on the bottom 2 sections or on the purchase thing, because you're missing a huge chunk of the journey that people are at the top. Your content must match that search intent, and it must be useful to the people who are searching for it. Bringing it back to Shopify, Shopify is great because it makes it really easy to create these pages. You can very quickly create collections around product type, vendor, name, tag, price, loads of other attributes and different product collections to take your existing catalog and carve it up around that search intent to create those really useful collections at the awareness and consideration phases. The benefit here as well is that we need to go for those slightly longer tail specific keywords rather than just having a collection called cushions. And I'd say that even red cushions is probably too broad. If you have a collection called large red velvet cushions, you're far more likely to rank because it's far more specific to the search intent. And Google can look at your page and go, do you know what? This page is actually really good. It's got all the information they need. It really identifies what the customer's looking for. Let's show that result instead. This is why it's important to create content for every stage. And just to give this a bit of an example, at the awareness stage, you might have a blog post such as what color cushions go with red sofa, where someone's still researching, they're trying to identify that problem, and therefore you've got a blog post that answers that problem. How to choose cushions for your red sofa. That might be the blog post that you write, and that then people come into your site on that term, look at your brand and go, do you know what? This has got really good content. It's really answered my question. Let's look at what else they do. Maybe they then go away and they Google red cushions because I've identified from your blog post that for a red sofa, you also want red cushions, and you've got a collection called red cushions that they then land on and they start browsing. They then move to evaluation, where they're then going, well, actually, maybe I want scatter cushions. Let's search for best red scatter cushions. Maybe they're looking for a blog post, and then you've written a top 5 scatter cushion brands, which highlights brands on your website that you're stocking. And then maybe they move to the purchase phase, where they've then identified a slightly different search term, where they're then looking for large red velvet cushions for sale, and that they're really looking for a very specific collection there that you may have created. And that collection might be called large red velvet cushions, or red scatter cushions, something like that. As I say, any questions, do fire it into the comments, into the questions tab as we go. Just to summarize this section, really, what I'm trying to really emphasize is don't try and rank different content for inappropriate parts of the journey. You're not going to be able to rank blogs for content queries, and you're not going to be able to rank collections for informational terms either. You need to be really empathetic to people. You need to really try and understand the customer and make sure that you're creating content that is around your customer and what they're trying to achieve, rather than just creating broad blog posts that are talking about slightly more vague topics. Be specific and give people what they're looking for. So I'm just going to take a brief stick of water for that. We're now going to look at how do you identify these opportunities within Google search, and how do you, how do you go about actually building this out in a practical sense for your business? This is where the content planning and just planning out your website is really important. We need to build the website around your customers. You need to really make sure that your website is empathetic to your customers and that the content you're creating is around them accordingly. We know what people want based on what they're searching for, but how do you find that information? What we're going to run through now is a few examples of how you can try and identify this in search, and how you can try and really make sure that you're finding right content to create at every stage of this journey. There are two key elements here to this. One is search volume, so how many people are searching for this a month. The second is search difficulty. Does Google have plenty of good results of this search term already? And that's the key thing, is just because you've got a good brand and you've got good content, if everyone else has got other good content and good quality brands as well, you're going to find it difficult to search. Competition is really important to build into your SEO strategy to make sure that you're ranking accordingly. Search volume. No keyword is equal. Different search terms have got different demands, and these can be found with different SEO tools, but also Google Ad Planner will give you this search volume. What we mean by search volume is how many people per month are searching for a term. So an example here is like cushions. There's 126,000 people a month searching for cushions. Red cushions, 5,800. Maroon cushions is 450. Red faux fur cushions is 40. And then what kind of cushions go with red sofa? There's just 10 people a month searching for that. So it's really important to understand that different keywords have got different search volumes attached to them. That doesn't necessarily make cushions better as a search term to rank for than what cushions go with red sofa. You need to take other things into consideration within this, because if we look at cushions, that's going to be a really difficult search results page compared to the bottom result, which is a slightly more mixed results. And that's where search difficulty comes in, and the difficulty of ranking for these terms. No search is equal. Different keywords will have different difficulty. Focusing on niche terms where less competitors exist will always help you, especially if you're a smaller brand and your website isn't as established as others in your industry. Even then, you can compete with big brands such as Amazon or eBay and those kind of big hitters if you can give a better experience to them and you can better match the search intent of those customers. The important thing here to bear in mind is that Amazon and eBay quite often have very broad generic landing pages and collections that they're not optimized. They are only present in those search results because of their sheer scale. If you can build a more specific and more bespoke experience, you're going to be far better able to serve your customers and therefore rank. An example here of cushions. These are all multi-million pound brands. So we've got IKEA, Next, Dunelm, The Range, Matalan. All of these sites have got a lot of high trust and a lot of authority. As a smaller brand, we're going to struggle to rank on those terms. What are we doing for time? All right. Red faux fur cushions. This is a far more specific search term. It's got a far lower search volume. And as a result, we see a lot more mixture in the search results. In Amazon, the top result is fluffy. That's not what I asked for. I asked for faux fur. The eBay collection, red faux fur decorative cushions for sale. Okay, that is pretty spot on. The Range fur cushions, fake fur pillows. Again, it's not red. It's not what I've asked for. Red fur pillows from Etsy. That's not what I asked for. I want faux fur, not real fur. The final brand, Faux Fur Throws, so that's quite a small brand that I'm not aware of. That shows me there's a chance to compete, and even that is still not an exact match to what I'm searching for. So within these search results, I'll be quite confident that if I can create a collection or a page that really matches that red faux fur cushions search intent, that I will probably outrank most, if not all, of these competitors, because they are giving a very bad user experience. So some top tips here. You can't compete for every keyword. The more specifically you can target different search intents, the more likely you are to be able to be the most appropriate result, which is what Google cares about. If you can, as we saw in that last example, if you can just be very specific in what you're trying to rank for, you're more likely to be able to match and to earn that top spot. Pick your battles. One is use the same words as your customers, so make sure you're using that kind of right language. Be specific to what they search for and be the best result. Those are the main things to kind of bear in mind. Being the best result and the most appropriate result for that search term is always what's going to win out. Don't focus on obvious keywords if you're new to this, because you'll be going up against much bigger brands who've got much more budget than you have. Let's bring it back to Shopify quickly and just run through very quickly how Shopify helps you execute this strategy. There are 4 key weapons with Shopify in your arsenal: collections, blogs, products, pages. These are the 4 main pillars of your Shopify site. It's how it's all built out. I think really you want to be focusing here on collections and blogs. Collections are really easy for you to create. Blogs are much more difficult. Don't focus on products. They're often too specific and they don't have that much volume. And that's, again, it's towards the end of the purchase funnel where you're probably competing against other brands there. You want to be aiming at the blog and the collection page because that tends to be awareness and consideration. Pages are really good for services and things you're doing around delivery or bespoke items or anything like that. But blogs and collections are where you want to focus most of your time. Write your own questions. That's a really easy way for you to be able to understand what people are searching for and to try and rank accordingly. So, Google customer service, anyone who's emailing into your customer service is a really good resource of these questions. If not, Google it and you'll get the people also asked, like on the right-hand side or at the bottom, you start seeing these other questions and terms at the bottom. Also ask.com is also a really good tool for this, which is free because it pulls in all this data. Talk about what your customers care about, not what you care about. Don't write blogs around your new warehouse that you've redecorated or your new van that's going out. That's not how people search. It's not the content people want to consume. Instead, you want to focus really on what questions people are asking. And I say that's where customer service emails come in really useful because you can start understanding and see patterns in that and write blogs to answer those questions accordingly. With blogs, quality is always better than quantity. Don't try and produce content. Don't think you have to be writing a blog post a month or a blog post a week to rank. Focusing on one blog post a month that is really well optimized, really empathetic and really well researched is going to have much more opportunity to rank than another one that's than you just churning out nonsense. Collections. Create specific collections that match customer shopping intent. As we mentioned earlier, you can build this around product type, vendor, etc. really easily. And this is a system that other e-commerce tools don't have. When working with WooCommerce or Magento clients, this is the biggest struggle, is that creating a collection that is bespoke with those products in is a pain. I wish they were on Shopify because it would mean that we can create these far quicker. Don't be too vague. Be more specific in these collections. So rather than just creating red cushions, maybe do create a red velvet or large red velvet cushions and things like that that are very specific to that search intent. If you've got a website that's only got one broad collection, that really is hampering your ability to rank. And again, this is something I see quite a lot with Shopify sites, is that they've got the very obvious collections in place, but they don't have these more niche, more specific collections that tie into that search intent. An example of that being, you want one page for one search intent. Someone searching for patterned cushions isn't going to find your collection that's just called cushions. Someone searching for, bedroom cushions isn't going to find just your cushions collection. You need to be more specific than that. So have 5 or 6 different collections that really carve up your product range into how people are searching. So just as a summary, coming to the end now, I think about on time. Shopify makes it very easy to create collections and blogs. What I mean by that is Shopify lets you focus on the content. It lets you focus your content on the search intent of your customers. And therefore, from an SEO perspective, you are in a very strong position because you don't need to worry about technical too much. And you can focus all of your effort on creating great content that aligns with search intent. Don't just create one collection. Make sure you're creating multiple collections that are very specific to what your customers are looking for. Make sure you're understanding your customer, build a website around them, and you're going to do all right, even if you've not got necessarily an SEO person on board. It really helps you just frame that, building your website and building those solid foundations around customers. Take competition into account when you are doing keyword research. So if you are looking at different keywords you want to rank for, don't think you can compete with terms that have got a lot of big competitors in there. Try and find your niche and try and find those more narrow terms that are more practical for you to be able to rank. Be specific and be useful, more importantly. This is roughly how like a Shopify SEO for me looks with a client. So it will be keyword research to identify opportunities and their common problems. We then create content around that, such as blog posts or collections. We then share that with other websites, bloggers, and try and build links to it. And then the system starts again the next month where we do more research, create more content, and then build links to it as well. So this cycle is really ongoing. It's always changing all the time. And the reason why it's always changing is because your customers are always changing and the market is shifting. Customer demands from 12 months ago are very different to what they are now. And even 2 years ago, again, that's going to be an entirely different search market. So you need to be doing this all the time. Ideally, you need to be doing it all the time. So what do you do next? One, I'd go away and assess your collections. So could you organize your products better? How do people describe your products? Could you improve your navigation to be more specific around how people are describing your products? Secondly, I would go away and start writing blog posts that answer your customers' questions. What problems do your products solve at a broader level? What product market fit do you have? What common questions are your customers asking that your blog post can then answer? And equally, what topics are your competitors not talking about? Go out and look at their blogs and see what they're doing, and are they producing question-led content, or are they just sitting there not doing anything? Because that could provide a lot of opportunity to appear further up in the search in their customer journey and get people at that top level before they get to your competitors. Finally, thank you very much for attending this talk. It's been good to speak to you all. Hopefully lots of questions to answer, which I can't see at the minute. If you want to connect with me, please do follow me on LinkedIn. I'm quite active on there, so feel free to add me. If you'd like to book a free audit call, I'm happy to have a follow-up call with your business and just go over any questions you might have around how your business is adopting this strategy. If you go onto abas.co.uk/Doofinder, there's a page there where you can book a call, and do let me know that you've attended this event. And finally, I've also got a podcast that I run called Adam and Simon's Bullshit Busters, where we do take apart a lot of these common problems and really just give practical advice to small business owners every week in a podcast. Let's move to the Q&A section. I know how to come out of this.
Well, such an amazing presentation. I loved it, Adam. And I'm sure people have loved it too, because we have a ton of questions. I don't think we're going to be able to cover them all right now, but we're going to go through a couple of them. And for those who we don't have time to answer, we will be contacting them directly. Okay. Yes. So let's begin with Christy. Well, we have 3 questions from her. The first one is, since nested collections are not available in Shopify, wouldn't Google consider red cushions and large red velvet cushions to be duplicate content? How could we address that?
It's a good question. And I think that is certainly a limitation of Shopify compared to eCommerce, where you can't do the nested kind of hierarchy. However, I would say that you can overcome that as long as you don't just have blank collections and you create those pages to be really specific, where you've then got the content that is, more tailored to the kind of large velvet red cushions, where you're talking about the materials, you're talking about the sizes. That's going to be far more specific to just the red cushions collection. So there's a lot you can do there by just making sure that those 2 landing pages, those 2 collection pages, have got bespoke content on there that addresses those customer concerns. And there are ways to do that. There's a few apps, I think, where you can put below the fold content that then you can kind of bring in blog posts and start doing more, creating richer collection pages, but it depends on your theme and stuff like that.
Absolutely. And also, speaking about collection pages, she asked any recommendations on how to create bespoke collection pages. The generic collection pages usually don't always serve the customer well.
Yeah.
How could she improve it?
So I think the first thing is to create a lot of questions around that content, around those there's two things actually. One, there's an app that I use that I'm going to do a shout out to called Pagefly. There are others available that are page builders, but that does let you put in the build below the fold content so that you can then put in slightly less kind of supportive content that you don't necessarily want at the top of the page, and you can add that to the bottom so that as people scroll down, it all appears there. But also, yeah, even in that top box on Shopify where you've got like the few sentences, I would make sure within that box you're still filling in addressing those key concerns where you are putting in keywords around size and materials and stuff like that to make sure they're there. But I think the main thing would be use Pagefly or a page builder to add in below the page content, or get a designer to do it, but then that's just added cost.
Yeah. There are many pages that do this absolutely brilliantly. Like, I've seen some amazing examples. Other question from Christy. What are your thoughts on out of stock product pages? Would you recommend using Shopify apps like Sitemap and No Index Manager, or no index the out of stock products? Does it make a difference if a product variant is out of stock but the rest is available?
So I'd say this is where the out of stock issue is a problem for SEO if you've got hundreds of thousands of products. If you're on Shopify, I would guess that you've probably not got a massive product range, and therefore it's probably not going to be the end of the world to have a few broken pages or out of stock pages. This is also why, with an SEO perspective, I always focus on building the collection level SEO rather than the product page SEO, because then if your catalog changes and varies and cycles as it naturally does in a business, people are still coming into that collection page rather than onto product pages. In terms of using a kind of a manager to no index the out of stock products, I wouldn't bother. I don't think that's going to have much of an impact. What I might just do is try and do 301 redirects to collection pages if that product is going permanently out of stock. If it's just temporarily out of stock, I wouldn't worry about it. No indexing them, I don't think that's going to have any benefit really. Google's intelligent enough to be able to tell that things like that happen. One
of the main problems that we've seen with our clients is sometimes they have out of stock products and they're doing promotions in Google Shopping as well, and that can take a toll on your ads. But if it's just organic traffic, I wouldn't bother. But if you have promotions of those products in Google Shopping, I would take care of those.
Don't spend money don't do landing pages and pay for people to land on a broken out of stock page. But I think from an SEO point of view, the out of stock pages aren't typically an issue for most people. I'd say it's only if you are at the size of like Next and you're generating tens of thousands of SKUs which are out of stock all the time, then it becomes a bigger question. But I'd focus this is a good example of, rather than focusing too much of your time and energy on that technical SEO bit, focus more of that energy on creating collections and content and links on other areas so that more people are finding you at other stages of that journey. That's probably going to have a better return on investment from a business level than it is trying to optimize that technical out of stock stuff.
We have a question from Sam. He says, a chat. Okay, we have a question from Sam saying, is Shopify the easiest e-commerce platform for SEO purposes?
That is a good question.
How would you compare it?
I think the key question there is easiest, and I would say yes, it is the easiest. That doesn't mean it's the best, because like if you go into eCommerce, you can start doing more interesting stuff like robots.txt and canonicals, but then it becomes more difficult to actually use, and you do need developers and stuff on hand. So I think, as I say, SEO is a journey, and if you're early on in your business journey, Shopify is great for getting you up and running, because by the time you've grown your business with Shopify, you're then going to be hitting into other issues that if you went into WooCommerce or Magento or another system, you'd be hitting technical issues far earlier in your journey, and your business wouldn't get off the ground because you'd be too busy trying to fix your WooCommerce installation. Whereas with Shopify, you skip that and your problems become, I'm selling the wrong products to the wrong customers, and that tends to be the bigger issue.
Yeah, Shopify is a great platform to develop a store. We have another question from Sam. He says, is it important to have a blog in my e-commerce, or is it not always necessary? I'm wondering, if I should create one, but I don't know what I can write there?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think I would say only start a blog if you've got a clear idea of what you're going to write about. And in terms of what you're going to write about, questions are the easiest thing to start writing. So just finding common questions that people are searching for. As I say, just go onto Google and Google the keyword that you're trying to look at. That will then bring up people also ask questions. That's a great place to start, just getting an idea of what the problems are in the market and start writing around those. And but again, making sure that you're Googling those questions to make sure other people aren't already answering those questions really well, because you just might be wasting your time. But I think blogs are really valuable in e-commerce, because certainly with one of my clients that we did is we were seeing in the customer service side a lot of questions coming in all the time that were the same kind of theme. So we would basically bundle those up and go, right, that's one topic we can write a blog on to answer those questions. Wrote a blog on it. Those questions stop coming in from customers because they're finding it on the blog. Then they move down the kind of the journey a little bit, and their questions become slightly more advanced because they're closer to purchase. And then you do the same thing again. So then they're about to buy and they're ready to buy, but they've got more technical questions. Bundle those up, write a blog on it, done. Those questions stop coming in. Then the questions come in more around like delivery or what's the after sales support and stuff like that. So yeah, I think blog posts are very useful, but you need to don't just do it because you think you need to do it. You need to do it because it's going to be useful to your customers.
Yeah, great. I think we're going to be heading to our last questions because we already passed the time, I think. So Zoe asked, do the collections have to leave on the page or for the customer to see all the time? Can they be made but hidden? I think I don't know if she's referring to not indexing them or just making them unavailable to navigate through the navigation or a search. I think that's the second choice, because it wouldn't make sense to have a category page but not index it, or collection page but not index it.
So the collection pages need to be live for them to be indexed. If it's disabled in Shopify, then the sitemap won't have it and Google won't know it's there. In terms of the navigation and how you link to it on the site with a live collection, there are two ways of doing it. You can put it in the main navigation, which is always the best and easiest thing to do. But if you're creating a lot of collections that you don't necessarily want to be found, I'd kind of be cautious about that approach, but you can do it. But then you want to be able to link from other pages. So rather than it being in the navigation, maybe you link to it from all the blog posts or from the other collections, so that Google finds it that way.
Yeah, great. Yeah, internal linking, such an interesting topic that we could spend hours talking about. And we have a follow-up question from Zoe. Well, it's not directly related, but she asked, do customer reviews show in SEO?
That is a good question. Yes and no. It depends where you're collecting the reviews. Some apps do automatically enable that kind of integration. Other times you do have to do it manually. I think the Shopify reviews by default do appear in there. There's another. Is it right if I just jump on another question very quickly?
Oh yeah, sure. If you have any other question.
I've just seen the one about core web vitals. Is it important for SEO? The answer is yes, it is important for SEO, but it's probably not as important for SEO if you don't have any content or you're not ranking already. Core web vitals is a new metric that's coming out. It is an additional signal that Google is using to rank, but it is exactly that. It is one more signal. Google might have 100 signals, and then in June it's going to have 101. And again, core web vitals isn't the issue. Core web vitals is measuring how good your user experience is. So user experience is what's beneficial. Invest in fixing that, because that's going to improve your conversion rate. And then, maybe you'll get some benefit from Google later on. And then
absolutely, yeah. How your users navigate through your page is one of the main things that Google is going to look into. If they are going inside a page and at the same time just hitting back, pogo sticking back through the search page, that is really important. So
again, it's just
care of your bounce rates.
Yeah, but just have good user experience, and then you'll be all right. Focus on that more than trying to please any particular metric.
Have you spotted any other questions that you want to answer very quickly?
Yeah, just very quickly. So how can I know what is a good link for my website and what is a bad one? Any strategy to follow? I think that comes back to what I was saying around the good link. Is your customer going to be on the page where that link is being acquired from, and are they going to follow it? And if the answer is no to that, so if your link is on some random Russian forum and your customers aren't Russians, then no, it's not going to be a good link to your website. If it's on The Guardian and your customers are, Guardian or BBC readers, then yes, it's going to be a good link. The strategy to follow, link building is its own webinar in its own right. There's a lot of information out there. But I think that's the main thing to keep in mind, is just go, is where this link is coming from somewhere that my customers are? If the answer is no, then it's probably not necessarily worth doing it.
Great.
That's it. Any other questions, please do just add me on LinkedIn or drop me an email via my website, and I'll be happy to help and answer that, because I know time is...
Absolutely. Make sure to follow Adam through LinkedIn. It's just Adam Bastock. I'm sure you'll be able to find him. First result, great SEO, Adam.
Thank you very much. The main thing is to make sure that I'm easily found on all platforms.
It's been amazing. Thank you guys for joining us. We'll be uploading this video to our YouTube page. Make sure to follow us there, or directly to our blog, doofinder.com/blog. We'll be happy to help you with any doubts you have. Thank you very much, guys, for joining us.
Thanks, everyone.
See you next time, Adam. See you soon.
See you soon. Bye.
Bye.